I move to instruct the House Conferees on committee substitute House Bill 1 to include in the Conference Committee report no more than the amount of funding for strategy B13 on page 2 of 46 of the bill pattern for the Department of State Health Services outlined in the gross version of committee substitute House Bill 1 from the House. I further move to instruct the conferees to adhere to the reallocation of family planning funds in Amendments 44, 45, 46, 49, 50, 54, 55, 56, 57, 172, and 173 passed by the House.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Hartnett, for what purpose?
Gentleman yield for a question.
Mr. Miller, to yield.
I yield.
Sid, could you explain what the effect of this is?
The effect of this, in the House Bill 1, there was money transferred away from family planning, Planned Parenthood, and put into other areas of the budget. What I'm simply doing is instructing the conferees to honor those amendments to House Bill 1 and not put the money back into family planning.
And could you describe what kind of family planning we're talking about?
The first amendment, 44 and 45, was by Weber. It moved $8,300,000 from family planning. It went to alternatives to abortion, early childhood intervention, and to supplemental TANF funds. Amendment 46 by Christian moved $6,600,000 to an autism program.
What program? I'm sorry?
Autism.
Oh, autism. Okay.
Yes. 49 by Bohack moved $14 million, a little over $14 million to mental health services for children. Amendment 50 by Murphy moved $143,000 to EMS and trauma care. Amendment 54, 55, and 56 by myself moved $18 million to early childhood intervention services, $3 million to non-Medicaid services.
Exactly.
Amendment 57 by Zedler moved $1,793,000 to the deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. And the final amendments 172 and 173 was by Laudenberg, and it moved money to the STAR program using state match of Title V block grant.
Okay, but really my question was, what kind of services are we unfunding?
Family planning.
But what is that? I don't know what that is.
That's money that goes to Planned Parenthood.
Okay, I'm not sure that's right, but
It's not right.
It is right.
Mr. Speaker. Representative Zerwas, for what purpose? Would the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Miller. When we talk about family planning services, I think clearly there are those family planning services that are strictly women's services that are intended for their health, unrelated to a pregnancy and certainly unrelated to an abortion. Would you agree with that?
That is correct, sir.
And would you agree with me that within that particular strategy, that a significant amount of the services that are provided for in there aren't abortion related, that are in fact related simply to what it's titled as is
those funds do not go directly to fund abortion. You're correct there, but they do go to facilities that and organizations that do perform abortions. But none of it, you're correct in that it's not used specifically for that purpose.
So would you consider funding for family planning services that has criteria in place that says these monies cannot be used by an organization that has an affiliation, that even has an affiliation with an abortion provider? If that is excluded from those types of situations, would that be considered appropriate family planning money?
Well, basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm asking the conferees to honor the will of the House when we transferred this money, just to uphold the will of the House. We've been through all of these amendments. We've spent many hours on it. And basically what I'm doing is instructing the conferees to honor the will of the House on these amendments.
There's a program that we're looking to try to reauthorize associated with significant federal money, the Women's Health Program. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not as close to it as you are. I know that you're really on top of that matter, and we appreciate you shepherding the House through that on House Bill 1.
Yes, and thank you for that. What I'm looking really to try to be sure is that we don't block out, some very legitimate services and funding, federal funding for those services by virtue of this instruction, and that's where I'm trying to get to with this.
Well, we didn't completely decimate the fund for family planning. We actually left about if I remember correctly, about $100 million in that category for them. So they're not decimated. They do still have operating funds.
There is funding, but if you look directly at the B13 strategy, we had about $120 million. They took about a 20% cut. We took $60 million out of that. And it all went to very worthy projects. Nobody will argue that they went to very worthy projects.
Yes, I think autism, disabilities of the blind and the deaf.
Correct.
Early childhood intervention. I think the money was sent to.
And part of what you have said
projects.
as an instruction to the conferees is we put some more money in there because we thought those strategies needed it, and I think we understand that.
Yes,
what we also want to get comfortable with, though, is that there's a significant number of women's health services that are provided in the B13 strategy and family planning that aren't abortion related at all.
That's true, and that's why we left $100 million in that strategy.
Sheffield raised a point of order. Gentleman's time expired. Point of order is well taken and sustained.
Thank you, Chairman Milne. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's time has expired.
We're going to move for extension of the time because this is a pretty profound issue, and we've got a lot of questions back here.
Mr. Hardin, we have to suspend all rules to do that. There's a 3-minute pro and con, and only one mover and one opponent.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
To a motion to instruct, there's one mover and one opponent, and a 3-minute time limit.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Representative Strama in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Hartnett, I'll try to address some of the complexities of this issue in 3 quick minutes. Let me just first say I really do respect those of you who have moral problems with abortion. That's why this state budget does not allow any dollars to go to abortion. So let me explain to you why I think it is so important that we not try to tie the hands of the conference committee to divert funds away from family planning, which is a different thing. Unless you believe preventing a pregnancy is the same as terminating a pregnancy, you should be, if you want to reduce the number of abortions in this state, you should be for funding these family planning services, because it is the most effective tool available to us to prevent abortions in this state. If you can prevent unwanted pregnancies, there is a direct correlation there to reducing the number of abortions. And that's what these funds do. Now, I understand that the objection is that some of these funds, and by no means all, but some, I will not yield because I just don't have time, Representative Christian. Some of these funds go to an organization that separately, under separate incorporation with separate dollars, does provide abortions. First of all, abortion is a tiny fraction of what Planned Parenthood does, and most of what Planned Parenthood does addresses women's health and preventing pregnancies. But most importantly, Planned Parenthood is not the only entity that gets these family planning funds. If you remember the debate we had during the budget on this, Representative Dukes got up and read a long list of other healthcare providers, including your hospital districts and others, that receive these funds and use them to enhance women's health and to prevent unwanted pregnancies. The last point I want to make on this is that part of our fiscal challenges this session is caused by the extraordinary explosion in the growth of our childhood-age population, who don't contribute to our tax base, but contribute incredibly to our costs. If we don't get this explosion under control by investing in family planning, we will never be able to fix our structural deficit. I will yield to...
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield?
I will not, because I want to relinquish the floor to others who want to speak against this motion.